Hi, I'm Lisa Murray from Creative Alchemy, and today is the launch of my Living Beyond Burnout book. And I thought it would be really fun to do a Facebook Live and have a little chat about the book and let it show its face because it has quite a determination, let's say, to be out in the world and to be seen and to create a difference. And that's maybe the thing I want to talk about first. Now, for everyone who's joining, hi, and thank you for coming to play. If you have any questions, then just throw them in the chat and let's just see what we can discover. Hi, Shayna. So I'm just going to do a little shout out for Shayna actually, because she made this beautiful cover for me. I'm just trying to get the light where it's not so glary on it. Yeah, she made this beautiful cover. And along with Karen Coogan, who took the photo, in a very impromptu kind of way, Karen and I thought we would have a body painting play day. And she took all these photos of me and we were just laughing ourselves silly and having a really good time. And then weeks and weeks later, I looked at that photo and I was like, oh, I think that's the photo for the cover of the book. And that's how it's worked out. And it's just one of those really spontaneous things. And maybe this is something to start talking about actually, is that when you enjoy life from a spontaneous perspective, it is actually energizing. So if I'd had to work out what I wanted on the cover, that would have been a lot more work than just going, oh yeah, that photo, that actually really feels fun and light to have it that way. So my first question for you today probably is, well, where can you include more spontaneity? Where can you actually just include more adventures and allow them to lead you to the space and the place that actually is for you? You know, because I was just saying yes because it felt like fun. I wasn't doing it for any other reason than that. And of course, that's what allows often a photographer or whatever to capture the moment in a way that hasn't got any expectations included in it. And one of the things I think that actually creates burnout a lot is where you have a lot of expectations, both of yourself and, of course, other people having expectations of you. So I wonder what it would be like if you would just stop having all those expectations. You know, actually, I'm going to tell you a funny story about that. So this book is my second book. For those of you who don't know, my first book was called Stop Waiting, Start Creating. And it came out in June last year, I think. And I did all the whole let's get it to be an Amazon bestseller and all that kind of stuff. And it was really fun. And I did a really different book launch to the one I've done today. And that's definitely a deliberate strategy. And really for this book, my true desire is that it finds every single person in the world that is seeking what's inside it, is seeking a different way forward, who actually knows that they're seeking an energized life. And so this book has just got this really different energy to it in terms of being out in the world. And it's literally like almost individually asking people, well, what can you, what can you contribute? What can you actually be and do? And, you know, like a friend of mine from Perth today, she popped in to see me and she's like, oh, can I take some books back to Perth? Another friend of mine in Canada is like, hey, can I get some wholesale books over here? And so what I want to say to you is that when you don't have to have a plan for something to be successful and amazing. You literally have to have a willingness for it to be all it can be. And that's a really different thing. And so I've had a really fun day today. Like I have a few friends staying here at the moment from overseas. And so we took the book out on adventures this morning. We were going to take it to the beach, but unfortunately it rained so much that that wasn't really an option. But we got really nice and wet and we walked home in the rain and it was good. And then we took it out to a couple of cafes and a couple of different things. And it was just more the energy of living the sorts of things that are in the book, living the life that the book talks about. Because a lot of people would do a launch and they would be all about, oh my gosh, I've got to work hard and I've got to do this and I've got to do that. And I'm like, well, let's just have the life that the book talks about and see what shows up from that. Okay. And so this is my invitation to you in terms of, like, are you trying too hard? Are you actually sort of creating this thing where there's just too much work in what you're creating rather than going, well, hi, what would you like and how would you like to be in the world? So if you've got any questions about the book, what's in it, if you'd like me to read a bit from it, anything like that, just give me a bit of a shout out. I funnily enough, I really knew the topic for this Facebook Live is the living an energized life, because so often I think when you title a book "Living Beyond Burnout," people think it's only for people who are nearly dead, and I was that nearly dead person, that's for sure. But what I would like to say is that really the whole thing of living beyond burnout is knowing that there's a different possibility, is knowing there's a different way forward, and that you don't have to really send yourself crazy in the creation of that different future. And so this thing of living an energized life is very much about being willing to choose in the moment what's going to create the most, what's actually going to give you energy. Because I think so much of the time we look at what we're spending our energy on, what we're using our energy up on, rather than going, well, what would give me energy? And Veronica just said, can you help someone like me who is uninspired and tired all the time? Well, the first question I want to ask you is, what are you tired of? And what is it that you need to change that would actually allow you to have the energy that you're seeking? Wow, sorry, there's like 10,000 thoughts in my head right now, because yes, of course I can help someone like you, and it's just like, which bit am I going to choose? So here's the thing, let me just see. All right, yeah, I was just seeing if I'm going to read you this piece. Okay, so I'm going to read you a slightly different piece to the bit that I thought. And this is, maybe I'm not. Actually, no, I'm going to start where I was going to start. So I'm just going to read you a little bit just for fun, because this is like the online book launch. And then next week, if anyone of you are in Noosa, we're going to have a live book launch at the J. And I'm going to do all sorts of really fun things there with, well, what's possible in terms of just having people know the joy of living an energized life. So, Sylvia's just said, when can we buy it online? I'm so excited to start reading it. Well, you can buy it now, darling. You can buy it now. It's there. And if you can't find it, let me know. If you just go to livingbeyondburnout.com, the links for Amazon are there, and you can buy a paperback or a Kindle version. And for those of you who don't know how Kindle works, because Kindle's like the online version, if you don't have a Kindle, that's totally okay. You can actually download the Kindle reading app for your computer, or your phone, or your iPad, or whatever it is you do have, and it works very well. So there you go. All right, let me read you this little bit. I've just got to get enough light so I can actually see it. Sorry, I'd like to put the book up, but then you won't see me and it won't work. So, okay, so here we are on page 104, and it's this. And this is in the chapter about becoming self-energizing, okay? So it's time to begin a self-energizing adventure when you have energy for scrolling through Facebook from your pool lounger, but not enough energy to go move your body or meet up with someone interesting. When you have energy to clean your office, but not enough energy to write something world-changing. When you have energy to do the work you have to, but never quite create what inspires you. When you have energy to show up in small ways, but you won't allow your true brilliance to be seen. When you have energy to basically fill in the blank with your tiny choice, but not enough energy to fill in the blank with your big choice. Does any of this sound familiar? So energy emerges from the tiniest choice play. And that's really what we were doing today, okay? We were just going, what's the pleasure? What's the play? What are the possibilities that can come from that? And it's funny, I took one of my friends from overseas to Perugian Beach, because there's a really lovely French patisserie there. And as I was there, I thought to myself, I wonder if my friend Stella's around, because I needed to give her some flyers for the book launch next week. And literally, I called her, and it turns out we had literally walked past her. And I was just like, oh, that's amazing. So that's the possibilities part of when you go out and play, then all of the possibilities can show up. You don't actually have to work at making them occur. So I didn't have to drive there to give her those flyers. I went there for the fun of it, and it all worked out marvelously well. So that's how that works in real life, there. So these choices are life-giving, and choice by choice, your energy begins to emerge. When it does, don't repeat the patterns of your past. Now this is, it's funny, I can barely read a sentence without wanting to give you a big explanation of it. So don't heave yourself straight back into working like a slave. Don't give that precious energy to the first person who demands it of you. Nurture it, enjoy it, luxuriate in it. Now, this is going to be uncomfortable. you'll resist it. And there will come this magical moment where you realize that you are at last using your energy for you rather than against you. If you aren't willing to enjoy the energy available to you, you start using your energy against you. And it feels like one step forward, two steps back, because it is, if you aren't putting you first. So that's a little insight into what Veronica was asking about in terms of, I'm bored or she said I'm inspired and tired all the time. Because what happens is if you don't use your energy to give yourself more energy and to nurture you and to allow the magic of you to emerge in the world, then that's what actually stops energy from being available when you actually have something that you want to do, okay, or that you want to create or that you want to play with. So that's one way of looking at it. And thanks everyone who's saying hi and congratulations too. I'm so grateful for you all. And I wonder, I'm going to make a request actually. And that is, if there is anyone you know who you feel could do with a bit of inspiration around having more energy, around nurturing themselves, around actually caring a little more for who they are, I would be so grateful if you gave them the awareness that this book exists. It is available also, actually, I should say, in the Kindle library. So it's also, if people just want to borrow it, I can't remember the words that you use, but there's a particular thing you can join on Kindle and it means you can borrow books, and it's also available in there because my target is really to have it be something that is available to everyone. Because when I had burnout, okay, literally I had really severe burnout, and I've written the story in the book, but I had burnout where I just couldn't speak. I was literally so tired that my brain cells were not connecting anymore. And people would ask me questions and I'd just look at them and I'd be like, yep, I'm sure your lips are moving and I know you said something to me, but I have no idea what you said or what it means or what I should say back to you. And so I would just stand and look at them, which isn't really the most fun thing to do. You feel a little incompetent, shall we say. And what I would say is that I really wish this book was available back then, because I had no idea that I had burnout. I didn't know what was wrong with me. And I didn't know, what would I say? I didn't have any clue where to start in fixing it either. And so what's really magical for me about this book is that it gives people a roadmap. It actually, and sorry for the crying, but it was such a really intense time in my life, actually. And it was a long time ago now. And I still am very aware of those energies, And so what I would say is that I didn't have any kind of roadmap. Like one person said to me, oh, you need to be more creative. And I was like, what? I need to be more creative. And the gap between where I was and being more creative made no sense to me. And I took that advice anyway, because I knew that if I did something different, that something would have to change, because literally what I was being and doing wasn't working, okay? It just wasn't working. I mean, I couldn't even sit up for more than about 3 hours at a time. So I was like, okay, I have to try something different. And I know when you're really tired, you're going to read this book and there's going to be things in there you're going to go, but I'm too tired to do that. And what I'm going to say to you is do it anyway, because that's what I did. I literally was like, okay, I'm so tired. I don't know how to be creative. I'm going to do it anyway. And I looked for the most simple things that could actually just give me a little bit of a different space. And it wasn't an instant transformation by any stretch of the imagination, but it was life transforming. So the physical recovery was really just the first part, and the transformation of my life has come over many, many different parts of this. And what I'd say is I thought I had a really great life before I had burnout, like my job and all the different things that I had. I thought my life was fantastic. And when I look at it now compared to what I have now, it was good by normal standards, but it wasn't a great life. You know, like today we've had such an awesome day. My friends from overseas have like been just sleeping, you know, after we've gone out and played, we've gone and bought a whole heap of oysters. We'll probably have some champagne or prosecco, and you know, like none of this would be possible if I had the life that I had before the burnout, because I never would have written the books that I've written. I never would have gone and done all the traveling. There's so many things I wouldn't have gone and done. And so what I want to say to you is, whatever it is that you're holding on to really, really tightly, as if it can't be better than this, or you're worried that it's going to get worse, if you would like just let it go, and I do talk about this in the book, if you would just let it go and just allow a different possibility to emerge into your life. You don't even have to work it out. You've just got to be willing to allow that different possibility. If you would do that, so much magic is possible. Like just, wow, incredible amounts of magic. And so that's really the invitation of this book. And I know for some people, they'll go, oh, it's called Living Beyond Burnout. I don't want to read a book about burnout. And I'm going to say, well, if you've ever been tired, you know, for more than a few days at a time, if you've ever had this sort of boredom with your life, if you've ever wondered if this is all there is, if, you know, like, it's like if you've ever wondered that, then this is a book that will give you a whole lot of different ways of going beyond what you've got right now. And so, you know, Rupesh is saying this is what my life is, and so is this bliss. Well, my question is, what's bliss to you? You know, my idea of bliss changes all the time. And my sort of way of looking at all of this is, well, what is the bliss that's available right now? And what would I like to choose? And what adventures would I like to have? And how can that add energy to my life rather than taking it away? So a lot of this, what I see it about, is actually about not even, I mean, energy management to a point, but actually the generation of energy, the energizing of your life. Because when you choose that, you will never have to say no to something because you haven't got enough energy, you know. And it's funny because I still do have moments where I get tired when I'm doing a lot of different things. But what I'm aware of is it's rarely from overwork, which was the thing that was for me. You know, now some people get exhausted and burn out because they're in a relationship that doesn't work, or, you know, they're being marvelously kind and generous to everyone else except themselves. Mine was definitely from overwork to a large degree. And so what I'm just going to say is, like, what if you could just have a life that's much more marvelous than what you've got now? And would this thing, and you know, there's a reason, like on the cover, that the living is really big and the burnout is smaller, because I really wanted it to be a book that is an invitation to living beyond. And, you know, because when I had burnout, I was a bit worried that I was never going to be well again, because I didn't originally know how to change it, as I was talking about earlier. And so that thing of knowing now that, oh, I don't have to worry about my body all the time. I don't have to stress about, is this, if I choose this, is it going to make me tired? That's not there anymore. And for a lot of people with burnout, it's like a life sentence. You know, I remember my acupuncturist saying to me, you're going to have to slow down and you're probably going to have to be like that for the rest of your life. And I was like, oh, I don't think so. That's not how I'm going to be living. And you know, he was probably a little frustrated with me because I wouldn't really take his advice. And, you know, that's probably a good thing, because I wouldn't have written this book. I wouldn't have had all this experiences and the awareness of what it actually takes to live beyond the burnout to give you if I didn't, you know, if I took his advice. So I'm just going to say to you, whatever it is that's going on in your world, where you're wondering, you know, is this all there is? Am I stuck in this place? Is it going to be like this forever? All that kind of stuff. If you have that, then what you want to look at is, well, okay, if I was going to ignore all the advice I'm getting about this, what do I know? What would I choose? What am I sure must be possible that everyone else says is impossible? And then go and live it. Truly, go and live it. Because if you do that, oh my gosh, you will have just a totally different way of being and living and creating and having what you truly desire. So that's my tips for you for right now. So does anyone have any questions? Is there anything you guys would like to know about the book, about anything, the launch? Because like I could talk for another 20 hours, as you probably can guess, but I also guess we've been going for about 20 minutes. So is there anything that you're curious about? You know, yeah, because it's quite an adventure to write a book like this. Um, Actually, there is one thing I do want to talk about, one more thing. And if there's any other questions, throw them in there right now. And that is that when I had burnout, the reason I didn't know it was burnout was because no one would talk about burnout. It was like a thing to be ashamed of. It was like you were a failure. It was just this hidden secret that so many people were suffering from. And that's really the other reason that I've written this book. Even though I like resisted it and didn't want to do it for a long time, I realized that ultimately it's going to change the world a lot more if I write the book, you know? Funny about that. Because it's not something to be ashamed of. The only thing that burnout is an invitation for change. Okay? That is it. It is not something that you should be ashamed of, or that you've been a failure. It is not that at all. It's literally the universe saying to you, or your body or whatever, saying to you, hey, there's another possibility here. Would you like to choose something different? You know? And that goes for people individually as well as the organizations, because there's a lot of organizations where, you know, they're quietly behind the scenes paying a lot of people out because they've got burnout. And what I would say about that is, this is also a wake-up call for the organizations to go, you know, is this truly the way you want to treat the people that are giving you their all? Wouldn't you rather actually take those people and find ways to make it work for them so that they can give you something even greater? Rather than actually going, oh, right, we've used you up, thanks and goodbye. Because that's what I see so much out there. And it's like, you know, burnout's become burnout has become an epidemic in these last few years. You know, there's research that says it costs $360 billion a year worldwide. And I'm like, that is crazy. So what would it be like if we all started to make the changes that meant that it wasn't something that was hidden, it wasn't something that was only talked about behind closed doors? Like, you know, if you're a manager or a leader of people, what if you actually started this conversation with your team before they get burnout, not when they're just about dead, you know? Because that then gives the possibility to nip it in the bud really early and to actually have everyone thrive. And that really is my vision for this, and my desire, you know, in writing this book, is that we can get to that space and we can start to actually look at the prevention of it rather than having to fix up people who've pretty much broken their bodies. You know, literally I had no short-term memory for about a year. And that was because I had broken all the circuits. There was just nothing left up there. And I'm very grateful that I found a whole lot of different ways for pulling all that back together. And I talk about it a lot in the book, and also in my Amplify Your Energy Lounge, which is where you can become a member, and we have weekly calls and talk about all of the different elements of this in some detail. And I actually give you really simple tools for moving forward through the things that, you know, are a part of what's going on when you're trying to energize your life, trying to energize your body, and you don't quite know how it all works. So yeah, so that's, I think, what I've got to say. So thank you all for coming on and playing with me. I'm so grateful. I'll probably do a few more Facebook Lives over the next few days, because this is a really different book launch for me. It's not I'm just going to do it in one day and that's the end of it. I really feel like I'm going to talk about this topic for a while. So for those of you who are bored, so be it. I'm sorry. If you've got enough energy, then find someone who you can contribute to. Find someone who you can actually show them a different way. And not by shoving it down their throat, but by just inviting them to a different possibility. And if you know, this is not where you're at and you do need a bit more energy, then yeah, come play. And what would be possible if we all had so much energy that that was never the reason we stopped ourselves? Because what I see is that burnout often lands in the lap of the people who are truly change leaders and change makers who actually desire a very different future, but they're maybe going about it in a way that's not energizing to them. And that's where you end up where I ended up. So if you're in that situation and you have a real desire to create change and new possibilities in the world, then let's play together and see what magic can actually come from this, from unhiding this topic and from actually allowing it to be discussed in the world, you know. And like, if you could do one thing for me today, it would be to have a conversation about what we've talked about today with someone else who maybe just would need to know something that could make a difference to them, you know. And they don't even have to buy the book if they don't want to. You know, for me, it's not about book sales. It's much more about, imagine if no one ever went through this again. Imagine if people just loved their work. Imagine if they knew where the boundaries were for giving other people too much energy or actually having energy for themselves. Like, that's really the conversation I want to have in the world. So thank you so much. I'm going to stop now because literally, you know, there's plenty of other conversations to come. And I'm really grateful that you've joined me here for Book Launch Fun. And yeah, if you do read the book and you love it, or even if you don't love it, whatever, I'd be so grateful if you would put a review on Amazon, because it really helps other people find the book. And that's really my target, is for other people, for everyone who needs it to find it. So thank you for coming to play. And I'm really grateful for all of you. And I wonder what is possible now that has never been possible before. And what choice could you make today that would energize you and give you a different future than the one that you're headed for? Because, you know how you see a lot of older people sort of walking around and they don't have a lot of energy? And then you see the occasional older person walking around and they've got so much energy. My question is, which one of those do you want to be? And do you want to start now? You know? Okay, thank you. See you later.